Good morning and welcome to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. When you hear the names Josh Sweat and Fletcher Cox, would you say they're R&B stars, NFL stars, or gay porn stars? What do you think, Dave?
Yeah, because I don't ever want to get beaten to death by these men. I'm going to say NFL stars, but it's a lot like an Adam Sandler comedy tape from like 1996. Are these guys making sounds working out, or are they having sex? And that was a real bit, by the way. Adam Sandler used to be fucking hilarious.
I just thought that was funny. They both play for the Eagles, if you're not familiar. Josh Sweat and Fletcher Cox.
Yeah. Well, don't forget, you've got the battle of tight ends versus those that love to go under center, right?
Yes.
We've got a lot of different ways in which we can use wordplay to describe this weekend's massive game, Super Bowl 57 in Phoenix, Arizona, much like a gay porn video. That is something that we could actually do. This is a thing. Hey,
it should erect some attention.
Ooh. Well, we know that we have a very phallic society, and so therefore, and then such, that would seem to make a lot of sense. Listen, we can cut the cake any way we want. Look back in your history books. Do you think that George Washington, Tom Jefferson were playing for the shirts or the blouses, to borrow from Dave Chappelle? I mean, they're wearing fucking wigs. They're flitting around with these puffy shirts.
Oh, the powdered wig thing. I never have understood that. They still hold that tradition over across the pond when they're in Parliament. I find that kind of silly, to be honest with you.
Fucking ridiculous, of course. I mean, obviously,
the whole funny to guys like us, though. It's funny. Yeah.
Well, it's probably funny to them too. I have to imagine that after 1,800 years of doing the same thing, you're probably like, is this getting a little bit weird because we don't really costume for a lot? But see, then again, I give it to the Brits. We costume for our games, right? And they do too. They get together and costume up for games, wear jerseys. But Americans are largely fatter in many cases, not always, because I heard Great Britain's quite chunky now too. And so we fit better into like jerseys, things that, fit over in large ways, tents that are combined together to make one piece of clothing. So I think it's all kind of weird. I've never really been a costume guy, though. Even when I was a kid, I stopped doing Halloween at probably 10 years old. I mean, I would still do Halloween, but I just didn't dress up. It just didn't really land on me. I think I've done it one time as an adult.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily a huge costumer either. And I pretty much wrapped up my costuming when I was about that age too. I did go to one Halloween party when I think I was, 18, 19 or whatever. And I think I remember dressing as Sergeant Slaughter for any of you WWF fans at the time, not WWE.
Yeah, baby.
Someone checking in today. Yes, Burt Bacharach died. But, 94 is not a bad run.
No.
94.
And that was Boone's Farm, by the way. He said he's checking in this morning. And James Jacobson, a.k.a. Boone's Farm, really cool to hear from you. And if you're listening or watching us, I should say, on one of our two Facebook channels, the YouTube feed, Twitter, Twitch, or LinkedIn, and you want to chime in, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch are the best ways in which you can get in touch with the show. Rob Dog from Stoddard up and at it this morning, chat on YouTube, says, how in the hell is Devin Hester not a Hall of Fame worthy player? It's not that Devin Hester's not a Hall of Fame worthy player, but you have to remember Devin Hester had a pretty narrow sort of a skill set, right? This guy's a return dude. It's not Deion Sanders, even though
but Ray Guy's in the Hall of Fame. He's a kicker. So, I think there's exceptions. And if I was going to make an exception for a special teams type of player, Devin Hester would definitely be on the list. And maybe he eventually gets in, but it's going to take him a couple of times, would be my guess. But I think he should get in. The guy did change the game. He was the only highlight in the Bears' last Super Bowl appearance, right?
That's fair. Well, for Lovie Smith and Rex Grossman looking thoroughly outwitted. That was something to see. That was a highlight. Maybe not for a Bears fan, but if you're not a Bears fan. Listen, Devin Hester, he gets into the Hall of Fame. I think we both agree. I just don't think that he's a first ballot Hall of Famer.
No.
Think of the guys that went in yesterday. By the way, Joe Thomas, shout out to Wisconsin. This is somebody that when I was putting together my list of top 5 athletes to ever come from the state of Wisconsin, and specifically the Wisconsin Badgers, this was a year or two ago during COVID, Joe Thomas has to rank right up there at the top. Now, he played for an awful Cleveland Browns franchise that could never win anything at all.
Right.
But he had one of the best sack rates or, not allowing sacks that the league has ever seen. He was nearly unstoppable at left tackle. If he would have played for any other franchise, not to say he wouldn't be the first ballot Hall of Famer that he is now, but we might look at Joe Thomas in a completely different way. I mean, like a completely different way, because imagine if he was on the Patriots winning those 7 Super Bowls, never allowing a sack on Tom Brady. Joe Thomas would be looked at as one of the most vaunted and probably highly respected football players of all time. Again, first ballot Hall of Famer. People inside know what he is, but the regular average fan that might not know who Joe Thomas is would be like just captivated with this guy.
Well, offensive linemen have a hard enough time being recognized no matter how great they are, but to be great and to be on an offensive line and to be in Cleveland, woo, that's hard to get. That's hard to get any attention. Let's be honest. So kudos to him for being a first ballot Hall of Famer. Doesn't get much better than that.
Yeah, it really doesn't. One thing I have to ask you about this morning, Chad, because we do have some big news. We're not going to go ahead and do it now. We'll save it for nearly the end of the program because we've got a lot to cover. NBA stuff, the Super Bowl, 2 different poll questions, which we'll break out coming up next. And of course, this ridiculous Brett Favre shit where he's suing the Pat McAfee show. The Pat McAfee show.
Yeah.
The guy wears a tank top and
Right.
he's got AJ Hawk with him. All right.
Yeah.
So Brett Favre's mad because people are talking about his misdeeds. Okay. This is America now, where if you tell somebody something is true because there's proof to back it up, text messages, phone calls, receipts, records. But if you say something is true that is true, you just sue that person if you don't like that they're telling somebody the truth. Okay, whatever. So we'll talk about all that, but we do have a lot to cover. I have to get your opinion, though, on this new Recovery Room hat. So I got this yesterday. I was working at the Recov. Great day yesterday. And by the way, huge weekend coming up. There's a private party Saturday, 5 to 9. The Recovery is going to be shut down from 5 to 9, back open at 9 o'clock, but it's going to be a huge weekend. What do you think of this new hat? Because
I like it.
I think it looks sharp.
It does look sharp. I like the highlights. It stands out. I like the color combination. And it looks good on your bald head. So
yes,
all in all, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10.
Okay, I like this. It's also fully fitted. It's also fully fitted in the back.
Oh,
so
it is?
the trucker hat style. It's a fully fitted hat. So that does kind of take
Flex
it up to the next. Yes.
Or literally. Okay. Flex fit. Flex
fit.
Flex fit is what my jeans are. So there's same concept. There's a basic range, but there's a little bit of expansion that can happen naturally or organically, if you will.
Yeah, indeed. Well, this weekend, we've got a lot of expansion to do. We're going to be expanding to about 8,000 calories per day on a diet level because this is Super Bowl 57 weekend. And when we come back, Chad, I want to roll out 2, not 1, but 2 big poll questions. One's on our Facebook group page. The other is on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney. Guys and gals, stay tuned. We're back in like 60 seconds. What can I say? The Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi Street is not only my favorite bar in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin, it's my favorite restaurant in all of downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. Breakfast served 8 to noon, Saturday and Sundays, daily specials, incredible cocktails, and the best damn wait staff in the entire city. My buddy Matt knows how to treat you right, and that's why when you go to the Recovery Room on 7th and Mississippi, you're always going to have a great time and a great meal with a great cocktail. So if you haven't been in a while, or perhaps you're just a regular and you want to stop in again, make it a thing. I'm there every single week. How about you?
Hello, I am Don Francisco, and I roast and blend coffees for your pleasure and mine. My newest blend is Vanilla Nuts. The coffee so rich and so sweet, it tastes like the French Alps has dangled its in your cup of java. If you love coffee like I do, then you'll love Don Francisco's with a 135-year tradition. Because at Don Francisco's, if you're up all night, so are we.
As in live from the Trauma Center studios, this is the Sports Carnival. Remember, things could always be worse. You can have all the same problems you have now and also live in Cleveland, Joe Thomas. So in all, it's not bad. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
So are you telling me that rivers on fire, industrial pollution just running wild through the city, teams like the Cleveland Guardians, the Cleveland Browns aren't going to excite you?
No.
I call bullshit. I call bullshit.
No, I've never actually been to Cleveland, so I shouldn't really say that. But, that's kind of the reputation of Cleveland.
It is.
Not necessarily the destination that most people want to end up in. I'm sure if you grew up there, you might have an appreciation for it, but Not
No,
really where you want to go.
probably not. As a matter of fact, I think 100% of people born in Cleveland leave Cleveland within their lifetime to never return. And so they just have a continuous population turnover. I will say this, though. The state of Ohio, lovely state in general. Columbus, Chad, you and I spent some time in Columbus,
Loved Columbus
6-7 years ago. And that was a gorgeous city. I thought that was a really nice downtown. And that's, of course, where the Ohio State Buckeyes play. So maybe that's why it feels cooler, because the Ohio State is actually a winning franchise or a winning program. And of course, the Guardians and the Browns never really have been. How difficult do you think, there's a two-part question here before we roll out this morning's poll. How difficult do you think it is for old school Brown fans to have seen that team move from Cleveland to Baltimore and the Ravens to have the sustained, I mean, uber sustained success that they have? 2 Super Bowls, a few different appearances, multiple Hall of Fame players, and they continue to reload, restock, and retool each year like it's no big thing. They're always, the Ravens, that is, a player in the AFC. Do you think that's tough for Cleveland fans of old?
I would imagine it. Yeah, that would really suck. Anytime your old team leaves your city, especially if you love them, you're going to be pissed anyway. But then when they leave and they become another team and become successful, especially when you weren't, that's really got to suck. That's like adding insult to injury, kind of.
Yeah. So second part to that question, because we were talking shit about Cleveland, there's not a lot of really bad markets in the National Football League. There are a few that you probably wouldn't rather live in if you had your druthers. Of all the NFL markets, which one would you not like to live in the most? Is it Cleveland? Is that the one that you would rather not live in the most?
Yeah, I would say Cleveland's got to be up there. Then it would really be not about the city, but about weather would have to be a factor as well.
I'd say that's
and that's
right.
more of me speaking as an older person. If I was a younger person and was in the NFL, I probably wouldn't think about that and wouldn't care and would look at it as a challenge. So like places like Chicago or Buffalo, I'd be like, yeah, bring it on. Or Green Bay, I don't care. I'll play outdoors in the cold. I don't care. But as I've gotten older, I would be like, no, indoor somewhere would be great. That would be nice, especially if it's like 70 degrees all the time. Like San Diego would have been a great place to play.
Oh my God.
When the Chargers were still in San Diego.
Yes.
I mean, we went to San Diego. I've been to San Diego games before. That stadium was a shithole, but it was a beautiful place. I mean, it's 70, 75 degrees all the time. It's awesome.
That's where we took the bus trip. The Buffalo Bills played the San Diego at the time Chargers, and we had this gal on the bus that was a bartender at this place called Milo's Wine Cellar in Boulder City. Check out that memory. So this bartender from Milo's Wine Cellar was part of the Bills Mafia. And when we say the Bills Mafia gets down, these motherfuckers get down, because this lady, and I'm not talking about a young girl, this lady, 40, I don't know, however old she was, it doesn't matter. This was a lady. She got in a fist fight at a bar and got a big black eye. I mean, a fist fight. We're not talking about, oh, stop it. No, these bitches got into a fist fight, and it was awesome. When we saw her the next day, the circle around her eye was just so incredibly huge, man. That was an epically cool and an epically drunk weekend for Uncle Dave, too, by the way.
Yes.
That thing got out
a good party.
fast.
Yeah, if you want to ever party with some fun folks, the Buffalo Mafia, Buffalo fans are actually really cool to hang out with, at least the group that we went with. Matt's saying Dallas for him because he doesn't want to be anywhere near Jerry Jones. I agree with the Jerry Jones part, but that stadium in Dallas, that would be a pretty cool place to play.
I'd rather play in Dallas than Houston. I can guarantee you that, because Houston, you want to talk about bad weather. Oh my God. Houston is like fucking miserable for like 8 months of the year, and not for the cold. It's so hot. And then look at what's happening to Houston on like a fairly annual basis. You've got like catastrophic events that keep taking down their power grid. It's flooding. No, thank you. I'll take Dallas. Let me tell you, the one city outside of Cleveland that I probably wouldn't want to play in, so Cleveland would be the city that I would stay away from number one overall. Oakland would have been one of those cities, but I probably would have in San Francisco, right? Like I wouldn't have lived in Oakland if I was an NFL player. I would have lived across the bay. But I would say Cleveland's number one. Indianapolis is number two. I mean, Indiana's a fine state, and I'm not besmirching the great state of Indiana, but Indianapolis in and of itself, really kind of shitty Midwestern weather. Yes, you play indoors, but the downtown scene, from what I've heard, is like okay, not necessarily great. Cleveland at least has the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And I feel like people in Cleveland, because they know what a depressive situation they're in, they probably do like we do in Wisconsin and just fucking get down all the time, drink a ton, party their asses off, and really get into their sport. So I'd say Cleveland, but Indianapolis would be like number 2 for me. Jacksonville's a sneaky number 3 because while that is in Florida, sometimes that weather down there can be real bad too. And it's Jacksonville. It's kind of like,
yeah,
I don't know. It's kind of like the redneck Riviera, right? Jacksonville.
I was gonna say it's still Florida, and
Yeah.
Florida is famous for stupid people and stupid criminals.
That's true.
There's that.
Let's say real quick, what's up to our buddy Steve Millay. Steve Millay, great to see your name popping up here on our Facebook group. It's great to see your name. I can't hear your voice, but I can picture your face in my mind's eye. Steve, great to see your name pop up. And speaking of popping up, Chad, we've got 2, not 1, but 2 poll questions to pop up because there was a lot of ground to cover. And just running down a couple of things from last night, the NFL Awards show was last night. We saw Patrick Mahomes win his second MVP, won his first back in 2018. We saw the Jets sweep the entirety of the Rookie of the Year awards. They had the offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year. Owner Woody Johnson made some interesting comments about an experienced quarterback the Jets would like to go get. And we're gearing up for Super Bowl 57, by looking at things in sort of a historical perspective. This is the first Super Bowl, Chad, that's going to pit 2 teams that are as evenly matched against each other. 2 teams that have the first and second runner-up in MVP. So you've got the MVP and you've got Jalen Hurts, who finished second. This is the 4th time that's happened in the Super Bowl era. So we got a lot that's going into this. And on our Twitter feed, I wanted to ask this question. If Patrick Mahomes, Chad, who won his second MVP last night, wins his second Super Bowl, okay, because that's rarefied air, and there's never been anybody in the NFL, as surprising as this sounds, to win multiple Super Bowls and multiple MVPs in their first 6 seasons. It's happened across other sports, but it's never happened in the NFL. So if Mahomes, who just got that second MVP, wins a second Super Bowl, is he going to be considered a top 5 all-time quarterback? Yes, no, or he already is. What is your thought on that poll question?
No, I don't think at this time you could say that. It's a little too early. And because when you do that, here's the problem with it. You can say that because of recency bias, and you're like, wow, Patrick Mahomes is amazing. He does all these great things on the field. I've never seen anybody like him. He's well-deserved of this award, and if they win the Super Bowl, obviously that cements his legacy. But you have to start kicking people off the list, and I don't think that's fair because when you start going down the list is pretty long, and most of those people on that list have a longer tenure, even with more accolades. So I don't think yet, but I definitely think he's creeping in there. I'd have to think through my list real fast, and I didn't do that this morning. I would probably consider him in the top 10, but I couldn't say that concretely. But that's my issue with list. Every time you make a list and you add new people, you got to take people off. And I don't like to do that in a cavalier fashion. I like to think about it a little bit before I do that because I want to be fair to those guys that came before him that made it possible for him to play and be as good as he is. But congratulations to Patrick Mahomes. Well-deserved. I was a little disappointed to see the whole list and that Justin Jefferson didn't at least get a nod. He wasn't even in the top 4. I think it was Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts, Josh Allen, and then Joe Burrow, which I'm not saying those guys don't deserve that, but I thought Jefferson at least needed a tip of the cap, don't you think?
Well, I do. And he was amongst the finalists for the MVP. At least his name was on the list, which wide receivers traditionally
tip of the cap then. Okay.
Well, a little bit. I mean, wide receivers traditionally don't even get that. Before we break out the next poll question, Morning Wood, Kyle's checking in, said, been to multiple Big Ten championship footballs down there in Indy. Great bars, great setup. You can walk everywhere, clean and good vibe. The tilted kilt is great. Okay, listen, I can always do this because I'm a person who is willing to say what I don't know. Because I've never been to Indianapolis, I could have my mind changed. If we went to Indy and I found it to be a completely awesome place, then I would absolutely be able to reverse course on that. So I'm not stuck in that. Indianapolis would always be off the map for me, right? That I won't stay there, but I'm going to have to see it for myself. Let me go back to the poll question number 2. This is on our Facebook group page, Chad. And this is asking on a betting perspective. And again, our partner at BetUS wants you to sign up before the Super Bowl, get 125% free play money. Enter promo code Carnival, make some money, and use some free money. I want to know what bet is going to be best for our audience members and you as well in Super Bowl 57. So we've got the Eagles minus 1.5, the Chiefs plus that 1.5. You've got the over 50.5, under 50.5, or a player game prop. What one of those bets do you think would be your best bet? My best bet is the over 50.5. That's the one I talked about Wednesday night. We were a bit early, but with John Papadopoulos on ESPN 105.5. That's my best bet.
That's my best bet too. I would say definitely the over. My second best would be the Eagles. Right now, that's where I'm at. I want the Eagles in the over. And then the third would be a prop bet. And I would say I like first touchdown catch, and I like Travis Kelce for that first touchdown catch.
Okay.
But like I said yesterday, I've been vacillating back and forth. I think right now, this morning as we speak, I'm sticking with Eagles in the over because that's what I picked originally. But I would not be surprised if Kansas City ends up pulling this out, and especially now that Patrick Mahomes just won some more hardware, winning another Super Bowl. I could see that happening very easily. Extremely talented player. Obviously, Andy Reid's got more experience. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes together, that combination is very deadly. They're not going to have as many concerns, I would think, as the Eagles are. That's the one thing about a team that hasn't been there and a team that has been there. This 2 weeks leading up, from my understanding, is kind of a scramble, getting tickets for family members and, having it hit press row all the time and all this pressure and all these things that distract you. And I think that teams that have been there before obviously have a little bit of an advantage. And that may not be a factor at all. Maybe the Eagles don't think that way, and Nick Sirianni's got them totally lined up and focused. But right now, I'm going to say, long story short, I'm going to say Eagles in the over.
I like it. I think Eagles in the over is a pretty good bet. I'm going to stay right now with just this over 50.5. I literally want to wait until the very last minute before I make my bet. That's one of the cool things, Chad, about working with BetUS. You've got live in-game betting up to the moment of kickoff, and then you can even make wagers in-game for quarter totals, half totals, and player prop bets. So looking at the Super Bowl MVP odds here on BetUS, I'm seeing Jalen Hurts right now at plus 120. Patrick Mahomes is plus 125, and Travis Kelce is plus 1,200. You've mentioned Travis Kelce's name as the guy that you like to score the first touchdown. Chad, I'll tell you, Travis Kelce is a sneaky good bet for Super Bowl MVP. If, in fact, the Kansas City Chiefs win this game, I wouldn't be entirely shocked to see Travis Kelce be MVP, because I think that Patrick Mahomes is going to look to, obviously his number one weapon, and Travis Kelce is nearly indefensible. If Philadelphia can't figure out a way to stop him, and let's say Travis Kelce scores 2 touchdowns, grabs 9 balls for 110 yards, and Patrick Mahomes is sitting somewhere at 250 yards with those 2 touchdowns to Kelce, depending on the way that Kelce impresses you with the eye test, the wow factor, I could see him being an MVP. And at plus 1,200, I think that's a pretty good bet. Now, you can also take part in bets where you don't have to specifically, Chad, say who you think is going to win the MVP. You can actually just bet on position. So quarterback is minus 500, meaning you'd have to bet $500 to win 100. But wide receiver is plus 700, tight end plus 1,100, running back plus 1,400. You can also just say, I want Patrick Mahomes versus the field, or Jalen Hurts versus the field. That's the fun part about BetUS. You've got all of these different ways in which you can make a wager, and you don't have to be super specific. You can kind of take a stab in a very general way. And I like that. I think it's a lot of fun, especially if you're not an uber gambler who has got all of this like gambling knowledge in your mind and you're working it out every day, like somebody of my accord who spends an enormous amount of time, a degenerate's amount of time, thinking about sports gambling.
Well, here's the thing about MVP. It's generally whoever's going to control the ball the most is going to have the best opportunity to win. That's obviously why quarterback gets the edge. And if you go over all of the MVPs, and I know most of them, and I haven't really looked at this to be able to put a number on, but I'm going to say 75+%, if not greater, is probably the quarterback position.
Yes.
And the one thing that's difficult, and it has happened, and it happened to happen in a Super Bowl that the 49ers were part of, where a wide receiver ends up getting the MVP, even though the quarterback had a great game. Because for a wide receiver or a tight end to have an MVP caliber type performance, obviously the quarterback had to do well as well. So for the wide receiver or tight end to get the vote over the quarterback, there's got to be something to it. And one that I recollect that comes to mind was Jerry Rice in Super Bowl 23, because he had 200 plus wide receiving yards.
Right.
And clearly it was a lot of, run after the catch, making Joe Montana look even that much better. Now, in the 4 Super Bowls that they were in, where Joe Montana was part of it, he won the other 3, but Jerry Rice did get that one. So for Travis Kelce to win it, yes, he's going to have a big game. I think he's going to have some impact after the catch, which he's very capable of. And then I would have to say Patrick Mahomes would have to have a few interceptions, or maybe not be able to get the ball to other guys for that to actually come true.
Yeah, the most recent MVP, not quarterback, was, I believe, Julian Edelman when the Patriots won the Super Bowl. And that was, gosh, I want to say 5 years ago now. I'd have to go back and take a look. That's the most recent example, I believe, of when a non-quarterback won a Super Bowl MVP. And that was largely because that was the Patriots-Rams Super Bowl. That's largely because there was no scoring in that game. And Julian Edelman was like the entirety of the offense. I like that our buddy Matt from the Recap was checking in, and we had his comment up there for quite some time. We all saw it. So Matt said his brother Mark, who does work right now, still in the NFL for Tampa Bay, worked for the Colts and the Jags. He said Jacksonville is a much bigger hole. So, okay, I'll take your word for this too. Because, Matty, if your brother worked there, I'm sure you went there. I'll take your word for it. Florida is still, by weather comparisons, a much better place to go. But Jacksonville, again, I mean, you're talking about a lot of dudes with cutoff flannels, jean shorts that used to be jeans, Crocs, I mean, on their feet, crocodiles in the water.
Fanny packs, possibly.
Yeah, just and lots of, I don't know, bad hair decisions. A lot of mullets, I feel like, hanging around down there. I'll take a trip to Indy with you guys. Listen, Morning Wood, P1 Breacher, P12 Foreman. Let's get together. Let's make a road trip to Indy. We'll see something. We'll talk about it. It'll be a lot of fun. Who knows? Maybe we'll do a show from the road.
Well,
The
good thing about if you played for Indianapolis right now is that at some point in the near future, you could be part of an intervention for Jim Irsay. So that would be kind of fun. Right? I mean, when the intervention happens, you could be there and be part of that's part of history. It's not very often you get to have an intervention for a billionaire. That's pretty rarefied air. So that would be a story that you could have for the rest of your life that I think would be fairly compelling.
I like this. I like this a lot. Well, take this morning's poll question and heck, add a choice or two if you want to our Facebook group page, Chad. 351 members strong now and growing every day. What is your best bet for Super Bowl 57? That's this morning's poll on our Facebook group page. If you're on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, let us know your thoughts. Is Patrick Mahomes, who won his second MVP last night, a top 5 quarterback if he, in fact, wins his second Super Bowl? The way that we've got this poll shaken out, Chad, and I know where you're at because you're not kicking anybody off this list to bring him on just yet. The way this is shaken out on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, 53.3% of respondents say yes. 26.7% say no, and another 20 solid percent say he's already a top 5 quarterback. And I go back to this because it's just never happened in the NFL. For a player to win multiple MVPs and multiple championships in their first 6 seasons, this has happened multiple times in Major League Baseball, right? Like multiple times. Joe DiMaggio. I mean, there's a number of guys that have won those kinds of honors in Major League Baseball. The National Hockey League's had a few with Wayne Gretzky. I want to say Gordie Howe is on that list. The NBA has a couple. They've got Larry Bird and Tim Duncan, both won multiple MVPs and multiple championships in their first years. And of course, Bill Russell did the same thing for the Boston Celtics, and he did it more than anybody did in those first 6 seasons. But if, in fact, Patrick Mahomes wins that second Super Bowl, Chad, and he's got the 2 MVPs, he is in that conversation because we put Peyton Manning there for having 2 Super Bowls, right? I mean, he did get, I want to say Peyton Manning got 4 MVPs, but we put him in there with 2 Super Bowls. We put guys with multiple chips in that conversation. I do think it's still a little early, right? Because he's still got a lot of career left.
Well,
but if Patrick Mahomes retired today, I think he's and they won the Super Bowl, I think he's a Hall of Famer.
Okay, let's just word this the right way, though, because to me, there's a distinction. Who's a better player or who had a better career? And to me, I think it's who had a better career. So when you start knocking, so has he had a better career than Tom Brady? No. Has he had a better career than Joe Montana? No. So there's 2 right there. Has he had a better career than Peyton Manning? I don't think so. Has he had a better career than John Elway? I would say no. No. Has he had a better career than Johnny Unitas? I would say no. So there's 5 guys right there. I mean, those are probably my top 5 or in my top 5. So you start going down the list, and again, that's not a knock on him. He's still a young guy, for crying out loud. He's got a lot of football to play. I think he will be there, no doubt. I think he will be there. And in fact, if I started going down the list, I bet he's probably close to cracking the top 10 in my list, and I would imagine a lot of other people's list. But he's got a ways to go. Definitely winning the Super Bowl. If you win 2 Super Bowls and 2 MVPs, you're an automatic lock, obviously, for the Hall of Fame. He's already in the Hall of Fame in my mind. But yeah, then it's just going to be creeping up that list and knocking dudes down as he goes. And that is going to happen.
Yeah, it will. And Patrick Mahomes, by the way, the way that they play football now, the way that they pass the football, the way that he is with the football, like he's Steph Curry on the football field. That's how I view Patrick Mahomes. He changes diametrically the way that the game of football is played. Guys are trying stuff now that they didn't try before.
Great comparison.
He showed them what that could be. So I do see passing yards, touchdowns, those records that Tom Brady holds, those could be easily obliterated by Patrick Mahomes throughout the entirety of his career. But it's going to take him a long time. I mean, again, Brady playing 23 years, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. We'll see if Mahomes could get there. But if on trajectory he is able to stay healthy and plays that long, then he'll definitely have those. The Super Bowls would be a different story. I don't know that you can go to that many Super Bowls and win. As a matter of fact, Morning Wood had popped something up here talking about the Eagles definitely winning the Super Bowl because the last 9 MVPs to be in the Super Bowl have lost in the Super Bowl. That's interesting too. That's an interesting takeaway. And I feel, Chad, you've taken the Eagles and the over. I feel that the Eagles have the right mix, the right combination of players and scheme to be able to beat Kansas City. I really do. Like, to me, they look like a team that could smash Kansas City in the mouth. Jalen Hurts can run the football. They've got great wide receivers. You've got Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown. You've got a good running back in Miles, I'm forgetting his name right now, but you've got a good running back there for Philadelphia, and the defense is ferocious. At the same time, Mahomes is that magic special kind of a player that it's hard to bet against sometimes, at least in my mind's eye. He becomes one of those dudes that I sit back and say, can I really bet against him? It becomes difficult.
Well, and then the other thing to think about when it comes to MVP is, let's not forget about, there is, history of defensive MVPs. I think the last one was Von Miller, if I recollect correctly. And I think if the Eagles do win, there's a possibility that it's largely because of their defense, and somebody could shine on that front four, with 3 or 4 sacks that could end up with an MVP. I hope that doesn't go that way because I'm hoping for a shootout.
Me
so
too.
I'm hoping that both offenses are really showcased. Nothing against defense or any of that, but I would love to see a 30-35, something like that, just a flamethrower back and forth with both of these quarterbacks and all this great wide receivers and all these weapons being highlighted. That's kind of the game I'm hoping for, and I think most people are, especially the casual fan. They don't necessarily want to see a 12-6 game. That would really kind of be boring, but that's a possibility, and I think that there is possible candidates on both teams for defense that possibly, outside chance, could get MVP.
Yeah, it's a possibility for sure. I don't see it going that way myself either, and I hope for just the sake of viewership and entertainment purposes in general, we do get to see a high-scoring game. Oh, by the way, over 50.5 is my best bet this week at betus.com. So I'd like to be right. That's something else I would really enjoy. I would like to be right. I've got a massive ego that needs a lot of protection here.
Yes.
All right. We've got to step aside really briefly. When we come back, we'll continue talking Super Bowl 57. I want to touch on last night's Bucks victory in Los Angeles versus the Lakers without LeBron James, who was taking his time to enjoy himself, have a little bit of wine, and look very dapper in street clothes while Anthony Davis actually played. Very interesting. Stay tuned. Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio. Back in just a second.
Preferred Insurance is the official auto, home, business, flood, and life insurance agency of the Sports Carnival, serving folks in La Crosse and surrounding areas with licenses in Wisconsin, Minnesota, and Iowa. As an independent insurance agency, Preferred Insurance is free to find the very best insurance for you, your family, or your business needs. Call my friends at Preferred Insurance today and set up a free consultation. Remember, working with an independent agency means Preferred Insurance works for you, with you, to find the best solutions at the best prices.
Back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studios. Remember, for maximum attention, nothing beats a good mistake. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Oh, Chad. What are we going to do without you? We'll talk about that later on. But for now, welcoming everybody back to the Sports Carnival, broadcasting live, as mentioned, from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Recovery Room breakfast, Chad, 8 to noon, both Saturday and Sunday. Going to feature some great stuff. I'm a big fan of the breakfast sandwich. You can get your choice of meats. You've got your eggs any way you like them. Comes with a great side of potatoes, either breakfast potatoes or hash browns. We got a big party coming up Saturday night at the Recovery Room, too. A closed party from 5 to 9. The Recov back open after 9 p.m. So if you're out and about this weekend, it's going to be a beautiful one. I mean, really, really nice weather. We did not get the snow, Chad, that was anticipated the other day. That passed us by.
Oh, good. Yeah.
It threatened us with 4 to 6 inches of snow. A light drizzle was all we got. It was beautiful yesterday. and it looks like it's going to be a great weekend. Make your way to the recovery room. I'll be back on shift Sunday morning at 10 o'clock and serving you some great drinks, Bloody Marys, mimosas, perhaps. I don't know, a screwdriver, maybe a tequila sunrise. Your wish is my command.
I have a culinary query, if you will,
Okay,
on that thing you
please.
just mentioned. On the breakfast sandwich, what is the base of that? Is that bread? What kind of bread we looking at here?
You can get your choice. So there's English muffin toast. You've got white wheat and rye. You can take it on any of those. The English muffin toast is my preferred way to consume the Be Fast Sam because it's like a bigger English muffin, okay? And then you get the eggs. I like them over medium to perhaps over hard. I go bacon, pepper jack cheese, sprinkle a little Tabasco sauce on that bad boy, and bam, use the breakfast potatoes as your potato choice and find yourself in a taste sensation unlike any other. It's terrific.
Could you use waffles? Is that a choice to use waffles?
I don't know if you could. Maybe you could have them make it with a pancake, though. They don't do waffles, but they've got pancakes.
Okay.
That would be like a McGriddle, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Well, I came up with an idea, and we executed this in my radio days in Las Vegas a long time ago. It was the McCrispy Cream sandwich.
Oh, God, that was funny.
Which was you go and get yourself a egg McMuffin. You get rid of the two, whatever the hell those things are. I think those are English muffins. And you use 2 Krispy Kreme donuts and you make that the bread and you eat it and then you die of a heart attack. It's actually kind of stolen from Luther Vandross. He used to do the same thing with a cheeseburger.
Oh, shit.
And I know this is a surprise, but Luther Vandross died of a heart attack. I don't think that's related, but it could be. Yeah.
Well, and he did lose a lot of weight at the end, did Luther Vandross. I think that's what killed him. He spent so much energy and expended so much energy losing all that weight. His heart just couldn't hold up anymore. That's too bad. He was a great singer.
Great singer and an innovator in the culinary world as well.
An innovator in the culinary arts. That sounds like something Elvis would also take to his grave at 42. Ain't that something? Elvis was a young man. And I'm 42 now. You just passed 42 over a few years ago. Yeah. Elvis was a young man. It's sad.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, and he died on the toilet. I mean, it is horrible. Very, very sad. Yeah.
Oh, shit. Morning Wood said he heard pork chops coming in for breakfast Sunday morning. Well, listen.
Get the tarp out.
That's the case. We've got our obligation to at least welcome him in. At the same time, pork chop, never forget, we reserve the right to refuse service to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
We take you the fuck out of the bar, too. That is something that can happen. Just saying. All right. Let me do this because Thomas is asking if we have big news. Yes, we do. We have some big news. Chad, we might as well just go ahead and break it now because Thomas is asking, do we have big news? This is your last day full-time on the Sports Carnival as Chad, the producer. We're not losing you forever and for good, but we're losing you as the regular part of the morning show. We're a bit sad, dude. I can't lie. It's a bit sad, but you've been great, and I really appreciate you helping us get this thing going, man. I mean, I really do. Couldn't do it without you.
Well, I appreciate that, and you know what? It's me giving opportunity for Pork Chop to step in and be your producer because that's the other part of the big news. A lot of people don't know. It's interesting that Morning Wood mentioned Pork Chop's name. That's going to be the show. It's David Pork Chop in the morning. It'll be hilarious.
Well, we're looking at it from perspective of Barstool Sports. We're trying to get on with some major platforms. And the one thing that we felt, Chad and I both discussed this, we needed somebody with a girth much larger than either of us could produce, even combined. Really, our combined weights are still 100 or so pounds under where Pork Chop is at. And also the authenticity of the stained shirt with the belly that hangs just ever so slightly below said shirt. Those are things that you just can't fake. You've got to actually have the real Pork Chop.
Well, and I already have some imaging I'm thinking of. It's Dave and Pork Chop in the morning. It's a ton of fun. I mean, there's all kinds of different kind of things you could go with down that road. So, no, obviously Pork Chop's not going to be part of it, but
good God, no.
Unfortunately for me with the situation I'm in with work and all of that, it's a time allotment situation. So it's just not going to work for me to be able to do this every morning, but I still am going to be part of it using production skills that I have and hopefully be able to contribute in that way and possibly do some stuff that maybe be pre-recorded. But, it's been a lot of fun and everybody that tunes in and participates. I appreciate and got to know a lot of our guests and it's been great. And I know you're going to do just as well, if not better without me anyway. So,
well, It's not ever going to be the same without you, Chad. And I see that my mom, Cindy M, checking in this morning. Sorry to see you go. Best of luck in your future.
Good morning. Thank you.
Yeah, we're all going to miss you. But this is the thing. The great thing about the way that we're doing things now, as opposed to the way that we did them in our broadcasting career, our radio broadcasting career, is this. It's our schedule. It's our time. And it's been really hard. I mean, even for me to contemplate how early you're having to get up on the West Coast in order to do this show in the Midwest. And as two guys who both did mornings for a long time, that's one of the reasons that you get out of mornings, is so you don't have to wake up that early anymore and do those things. But we will have opportunities ample to hear Chad's voice on the program and see his imaging. And again, we can do some after hours stuff, or maybe we'll do some weekend stuff. Who knows? We do have a lot of new things that we're attempting to ramp up here. And part of that was getting the Trauma Center studio relocated to downtown La Crosse, Wisconsin. That was part of it. So we had a lot of moving pieces that were actually in play in the last 6 or 8 weeks. And because of that, we've sort of delayed ramping some stuff up. But I can tell you, we have acquired a stash, and I mean an incredible stash of sports memorabilia that we're going to be giving away on a semi-daily basis here on the Sports Carnival. We've got a lot of big giveaways coming with the recovery room. And if things break the right way, guys and gals, we might actually expand to 2 hours. So we'll be talking about all of that in the weeks and months to come. But we do appreciate everybody reaching out this morning and you know, sending your wishes to Chad. We're not losing him forever, but we all completely understand. Dude, it's fucking early back there. It's Washington State, for Christ's sake.
It'd be one thing, you know, getting up at 5:30 and being able to, you know, do 4 or 5 hours and then be able to take a nap like I used to.
True.
But now it's like I have to go to work for 8 or 9 hours, and then you know what I mean? It's one of those deals. It's a time constraint. Some things that are changing at work. Not that I have to go into detail or anything like that, but I mean, that's the main reason why this is happening. And again, I would love to do this full time. It would be great, but it's just not a possibility right now. So who knows in the future as you grow this thing and I do my thing on the side with production and stuff, who knows where it ends up, and maybe we reconnect.
Well, I don't think we'll ever be unconnected. That's one thing that we have been really good at, even during my stint at a local broadcast company. Hell, Chad, we won some awards together. You were part of the show every day anyways. That's what made this so fun. People got a chance to see you, got a chance to feel your personality. And I think for what that's worth, we've benefited everybody greatly. Now, I want to turn our attentions back to something that we spend time and spend money on. And that, of course, is sports. And again, sports betting, betus.com. Get yourself some free money. Use promo code Carnival. Last night, if you would have taken a stab on the Bucks versus the Lakers, you would have made some money. Milwaukee came into the game, I think, a 6.5-point favorite. Early on, Chad, the Lakers were playing some inspired basketball. They won the first quarter 31-26, I think, and actually were up at half by about 7 points. The second half, the Bucks do what they've done for the last 9 games now in a row consecutively and put it on the Lakers. The 9-game winning streak right now for the Bucks is the second longest of the season. Chad, they opened up this year at 9-0 as well. So this team is now really firing again on all cylinders, and that's even without the new addition of Jay Crowder. Giannis had a stellar game, 38 points, 10 boards. Brook Lopez was really big on defense with 10 boards and 3 block shots, and Drew Holiday had 18, 7, and 7. For the Lakers, AD actually played a game, while LeBron James was in street clothes, 23 points and 16 boards, Chad. Dennis Schroeder had 25 points. What I did see from the Lakers last night, even though this was a loss, is that the intensity, the energy, the feeling around the team has definitely buoyed. Seeing D'Angelo Russell, Malik Beasley, LeBron James, Jared Vanderbilt, and now coming to the Lakers, Mohamed Bamba from the Orlando Magic, a 7-foot guy with an 18-foot wingspan as the new center, while also trading out Thomas Bryant. You could tell that the Lakers were buoyed by the thought process and the prospects, I should say, of bringing aboard these guys. The Bucks, again, workmanlike in their approach, didn't panic, of course, because they're the better team, and they end up putting it away, 115-106. But Chad, the takeaway for me was this: the Bucks still look great. They'll get Jay Crowder. They'll be just fine. The Eastern Conference is a 2-horse race, Boston and Milwaukee. The Western Conference is going to be interesting over the next couple of months, like really interesting. And if I'm another team out there, I know the Suns have KD. We don't know if he's going to be healthy and when that's going to be. They say after the All-Star break. Okay. But if I'm the Western Conference teams right now, I'm not looking at the Lakers and saying, no big deal. They've changed their whole roster over basically in the last 48 hours. That could be a real problem if you're a team in the, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th spot in this year's upcoming playoffs.
Well, going to the Bucks just real fast, I think that adding Jay Crowder is definitely aimed at the Celtics, adding a wing defender like Jay Crowder, is definitely aimed at the Celtics. And so I agree with you. It is a two-man race, and they know it. Part of the reason why they added him, obviously not just to make the team better, but specifically, I think, to face the Celtics. And I think that is a huge move by the Bucks and could be trouble for the Celtics. Well, that remains to be seen. And then I'm really interested to see D'Angelo Russell back on the court with the Lakers. That's going to be fun to see, especially now that he's come so far. As you mentioned before, we kind of saw him in Summer League and didn't really impress us that much. And then he ended up leaving. And I remember you talking about him after he left and how good he had become and kind of lamenting the fact. It's like, of course, because he's no longer a Laker, he goes away and becomes good. Now he's coming back. And then with those other additions that you mentioned, and as long as you have LeBron on the floor, you always have a shot. I definitely think, though, that's a tough hill to climb in the West. I think at this point you have to tip your cap and give the edge to the Suns right now. But don't count out Memphis. Don't count out Denver. There are some other teams in the West. The West is freaking stacked right now after all of these moves.
Listen, the West is stacked, and I don't think that necessarily the Lakers are in any way, shape, or form like a front runner or will be even considered. They're 12 and a half games back. Okay, they're in the 13th spot in the Western Conference right now, but they're only 4 games out of 4th place. That's how tight the Western Conference is right now. Utah's under 500 or barely above. I think they were 29-27 coming into last night's game. They'll probably lose some more games and take a step back as Danny Ainge rebuilds this roster. The Grizzlies had a really great stretch and then a really shaky stretch. I think they lost 8 games in a row recently. The Pelicans without Zion, which we've completely stopped talking about. Remember how fun the Pelicans were for 2 weeks? Mm-hmm. That's because Zion can't stay healthy, guys. No. He just can't stay healthy. So that's a team that'll take a step back. My main point was this. If you're a team, and say the Lakers, which I think they will now, get at least into the play-in tournament, right? The playoff tournament, or whichever way that breaks for them, I think they're in that particular camp. They're going to be a scary team to face. That's what I'm thinking. If you're a top-tier team, say a 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th seed, I don't know that you'd necessarily want to see LeBron James in the first round of the playoffs. You'd rather save that maybe for the conference semifinals or the conference finals. But either way, what I saw last night from the Lakers was just a team that felt a little bit different. And for the Milwaukee Bucks, a team that knew that they were the better team and they would win that game. When they were down early, it's kind of like, all right, I got to go to bed because we got the game coming up tomorrow. I did. At halftime, I was like, oh, fuck, the Bucks are going to win this one. No problem. And they sure did. Stay tuned. The Sports Carnival broadcasting live from the Trauma Center studio, powered by the Recovery Room. Back in just a second. It's Chad's final show. I want to update this morning's poll question as well and get you set for a little bit of what we have coming up next week. Stick around.
Now more than ever, if you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps an investment property, you need a full-time dedicated real estate agent who is up to date on all the latest trends and analysis and is ready to give you the kind of service that you deserve. That's why the official real estate agent and the official real estate partner of the Sports Carnival is Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate. Whether you're looking to buy or sell your first home or perhaps you are a seasoned investor, call the official real estate agent partner of the Sports Carnival, Kyle Cable of One Trust Real Estate.
At the Little Doobie's Pizza, we kill 2 stone birds with 1 rock every time with our hand-rolled Doobie Deluxe for only $49.95. That's a street value of over $75. No way! The Doobie Deluxe is a hand-rolled 18-inch pizza that will blow your bone-resonant mind. Whoa! Topped with a sausage, black olives, extra cheese, and about a half ounce of the finest kush at east side of San Bernardino.
Dude, give me another slice.
Because at Little Doobie's Pizza, we put a little TLC in our THC.
And right now, for a limited time only, get an order of crazy cannabis bread for only $10 with an order of a Doobie Deluxe at the street value of over $22.50.
You know what we say at the Little Doobie's Pizza? Why get stoned then eat when you can do both at the same time?
Doobies.
Back to the action live from the Trauma Center studios. This is the Sports Carnival. I will remind you once again, it's only a gambling problem if you lose. Now here's your host, Dave Carney.
Yeah, that's right. And it's funny that you're saying that because I'm right now making a bet here on betus.com.
Good.
Again, use promo code Carnival to get yourself 125% free.
What are you betting on?
Well, right now I was taking a look at how the total was moving. And again, I've taken 50.5 and going over 50.5 as my play. So I needed to make sure that I got that while it was still there. As a matter of fact, I'm seeing this number bounce, Chad, to 51 right now. But if you want to go ahead and buy it down to 50.5, it's only at minus 120 as opposed to the regular minus 110, meaning you got to bet $120 to win 100. In my case, the win will be just slightly less than the actual bet amount. So I'm taking that one. I'm also seeing Philadelphia move now to just a point favorite. So that hook of that extra half a point, which actually is important because if Philly wins by just a single point now, it's just a push. It's now Philadelphia -1 at 120. The money line for Philadelphia is -125. You're getting +1 and even for Kansas City with a money line of just 105, which again shows you the extreme closeness of this game on a matchup basis, Chad. When you see these kinds of odds, and again, if you're completely uninitiated, generally a heavy favorite would be -150, maybe -250, right? Meaning you'd have to lay down 250 to win that 100. And conversely, the underdog might be +150, +250. We've got two teams that are just neck and neck. So the money line isn't really a massive play for me either way here. I'm just vacillating, and I don't know when I'll make my final decision on who I think actually wins the game. Like, I have an idea how the outcome of it's going to look. I do think it's going to be relatively high scoring. I really do. I think that Mahomes and Kansas City, they've got the opportunity to score 51 points themselves. I mean, that's something that they can do all by themselves. The last time these two teams played back in 2021, I know they were led by a different quarterback, Philadelphia, but the final score was 42-30. So that's 72 total points. So I can absolutely see this game being high scoring. I just don't know if I absolutely think I've got a beat on who wins. I feel like it's going to be Philadelphia, but Patrick Mahomes and that, sideways throw and Travis Kelce doing some crazy shit. And the way that Andy Reid has schemed up this team, I thought Tyreek Hill's loss was going to be much more impactful than it was. So I've been wrong on Kansas City this season. I bet Denver to win the AFC West at +350 before the season started. It was a bad bet, guys. I mean, so I'm having a real hard time going against Kansas City.
Speaking of Denver, did you see Sean Payton cleaning house with Russell Wilson's entourage? He says, you can't come in the building. You're not part of the team.
No.
Get the hell out.
A reporter.
What's that?
A reporter asked him specifically, are you going to let Russell Wilson bring? He's like, what? No, the people that are in this building are going to work for the team. Like, no.
Yeah, you got to grow up. So I kind of see it like this. So again, I'm taking Eagles in the over, but I could kind of see the Eagles in the first half going up early, and this is where it becomes a shootout. And in the second half, I'd almost think about placing a bet on the Chiefs in the second half because then they make it a game. So I can kind of see that happening because both of these teams, this is the best thing about this game and what makes it so hard to predict. Both of these teams can put up bunches of points in a very, very short period of time. I mean, what did the Eagles do that one? What was it? 21 points in like 6 minutes or whatever it was. Yeah. It's just absolutely overwhelming. So both teams are capable of that. Again, that's where I kind of leads me to believe it's going to be the over. And who ends up winning it? Again, I'm just going to stick with the Eagles, but I would not be surprised if the Chiefs win and would be glad. That's the other cool thing about this game is I really don't have a dog in the fight other than if I place money on it. I'm cool with either one of these teams winning. If the Chiefs win, that's great because I like Patrick Mahomes. I like Andy Reid. I like Travis Kelce. If the Eagles win, I like Nick Sirianni. He's grown on me. I like Jalen Hurts. I'm cool with that too. So I think this is to me, one of those Super Bowls that I just get to sit back and enjoy it. And however it comes out doesn't really matter as long as it's a fun, entertaining game.
Yeah, that to me is, again, we talked about it earlier, the number one priority because there is no dog in the fight specifically. We have no Packer involvement in this game. We have nobody from the NFC North that we're having to like root for or against. And I agree. I want this to be an exciting, entertaining game. I will tell you, looking at the poll question on our Facebook group page, Chad, what is your best bet for Super Bowl 57? The over and the Eagles right now is the bet. So over 50.5 is getting 45% of the votes. The Eagles at -1.5, we're getting 35%. Again, this number's changed sort of in real time this morning, and the Chiefs are getting 20%, the other remaining amounts of votes here. So the over and the Eagles right now you're in line with where our poll question is, and we're starting to get a lot of votes in on this bad boy. Changing gears just a little bit and talking about Patrick Mahomes in general. So if you're on our Twitter feed at the Sports Carney, you can take this poll question. If Patrick Mahomes, who won his second MVP, wins his second Super Bowl, will he be considered an all-time top 5 quarterback? 50% now of respondents say yes. 31% say no. 18.8 say he's already in that top 5 space. It's going to be interesting because while I agree with you, you don't want to just throw people out of this list in order to hoist Patrick Mahomes up here. I can see that being discussed more and more and more. And something that we talked about a few days back, the NBA's GOAT. We didn't really give, and I think Mike Schmidt and I, well, you and Mike Schmidt and perhaps even John Papadopoulos to a degree started talking Steph Curry, right? Like there are some guys that we just don't mention their names in the all-time greats as much as possibly we should because they do it in such a non-traditional way. Like Patrick Mahomes doesn't look like the other quarterbacks that sat back there in the pocket, slung it. He's just so different. Steph Curry, the same thing. But I think I mistakenly didn't put Steph Curry in like my all-time greatest list because he's not going to be an all-time leading scorer, right? Like he's not going to end up being there because of how his career started. But good God, that guy might be one of the best players in NFL or in NBA history. And Mahomes, regardless of longevity, might be one of the best players in NFL history.
Well, again, I think that this is all a compliment for him, for us to even, or anybody to talk about this is as young as he is a huge compliment for him. And as long as he continues on this trajectory, he's going to be there eventually. Whether he's here, there now or not, doesn't really matter. I definitely see him in the top 5 at some point on most people's list, especially if they win the Super Bowl this Sunday, and then he's able to continue his career and maybe win another Super Bowl or 2, win another MVP or 2. Then, yeah, I don't think you can argue that he's going to be in that list. And obviously, with the way the NFL has changed and it's offensively minded, numbers are only going to get bigger, as we've seen. They're only going to get more astronomical. You're looking at 70. Used to be if you passed over 40,000 yards, it was a huge accomplishment. Now you got to hit 65, 70,000 for people to talk about it, which is unbelievable.
It really is. And Jesus, when you put it into that perspective, it's like, yeah, think of the 40,000 yard club. That used to be the litmus test. John Elway, Dan Marino, not anymore. I think even Johnny Unitas is kind of up there. Maybe not quite to 40, but I think Johnny Unitas might be over 40.
Yeah, he's over
I'd
40.
Have to see that.
Yeah.
Joe Montana. Those are names that stand out like in the all-time pantheon of greatest NFL football players and quarterbacks specifically. So you're right. You start to now think about like 75, 80,000 yards is like the number to reach. We'll see. It's going to be a really fun game. I'm really excited for this. I think that if you're a fan of the NFL, you have to be happy about where the NFL is. Not to say if you're a fan of the Packers, you have to be super excited that the Packers aren't there. But I'm just talking about from a general NFL fan perspective, you have to be pretty happy about the health of this league, where it's at, the fact that it is right now the most popular American sport by far, by far. So you've got to be excited for that. And we get a matchup between two really exciting, dynamic quarterbacks and teams. And for Jalen Hurts, this is a guy that I've really, really, really changed my opinion on. When he played at Alabama, I never thought that he would be an NFL caliber quarterback. He just did not look anything like an NFL caliber quarterback. You go to Oklahoma, you get Lincoln Riley for that year, then you get taken in the second round by Philadelphia, start to put things together, and now you're looking at a guy that you think, maybe for the next 5 years, maybe not 10 or 15, but for the next 5 years could be one of the most dynamic players in the league. That in and of itself, Chad, is another major accomplishment because I didn't see this guy being anything close to what he is. And for Packer fans, this is something else that we have to sort of sulk on. The Packers could have just drafted Jalen Hurts in the second round. They didn't have to take Jordan Love. Like, that's not something that they had to do.
Yeah, Joe DeGuano talked about that more than once, and he's never been a big fan of the Jordan Love move. And to think about it, of course, hindsight's 2020. That one stings a little bit. That one stings. Portland could have taken Michael Jordan too, by the way. So there's all kinds of those scenarios in sports, which always makes it fun after the fact.
Listen, Portland had 2 opportunities to get that shit right, and they blew both of them. They took Tim Bowie, who was a talented big man, but often injured, let the generational great Michael Jordan go, and they took Greg Oden. He was already an injury wreck ahead of Kevin Durant. That's something, and I realized Portland at the time, because I was telling this story yesterday to somebody, had a guy named Brandon Roy, which many of you don't remember Brandon Roy.
I remember Brandon Roy, yeah.
Brandon Roy was a baller, man. All-star, I think, a couple of times. Portland thought, nah, we've got Brandon Roy. We've got LaMarcus Aldridge. What do we need Kevin Durant for? Fuck, what? I mean, like, how do you let that thing go? Like, how do you let that thing go?
Yeah, how'd that turn out, by the way?
Not awesome. It is really sad to say, though, that at this point in their careers, Kevin Durant might be playing about as many games as Greg Oden.
Yeah.
And that's the other part that could be a little sad.
Yeah.
All right, Jen Bank, you'll be our final message here, sending Chad off saying, you will be missed, Chad. Thank you. You will be missed, buddy. But again, we're not going to lose you forever. We're just going to lose you for a little bit and during the mornings. But after mornings, and who knows, Chad's voice will pop up and we'll keep this ball rolling without you, buddy. But we couldn't have started it off without you. Again, thanks so much. And to everybody that's messaged us this morning about this, I really appreciate it. Chad, have a great weekend, dude. I'll talk to you over the weekend, and we'll talk some Super Bowl. But
go over. That's what we want. Want the over.